Good afternoon, gang. On Thursday afternoon, hundreds of frontline forecasters at the National Weather Service were fired without warning, and more firings were expected on Friday. Let's break down what we know so far. I also spoke with a National Weather Service employee who was cut yesterday.
They're not sending me off in a good way. They're sending me off in the most cruel, kind of vindictive way. For no reason.
Roughly 500 NOAA and National Weather Service employees have been fired so far. Some reports suggest another 800 could be axed. The first round of firings came at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, and their effective termination date was 5 p.m., so just 90 minutes later. The firings come at a time when more than half of the National Weather Service offices are critically understaffed. In 2023, the House Appropriations Committee wrote that they were, quote, concerned about the staffing issues. More than 100 of these firings occurred in regions expected to deal with a potential tornado outbreak next week. Let's break down exactly where the firings happened. So far, we know several hundred were first-year employees at the local National Weather Service offices. We call these Weather Forecast Offices, or WFOs. There are 122 WFOs across the U.S. and its territories. Each one forecasts for a given region. Each WFO is responsible for handling regional forecasts, airport and marine forecasts, coordinating with local emergency management, and of course, issuing warnings. Every time you get a buzz on your phone, a tornado warning, a flash flood warning, whatever, it comes from a human forecaster at your local National Weather Service who is watching the radar like a hawk. In recent years, retiring forecasters and a federal hiring freeze has meant that most offices were at one point or another understaffed. Many still are. There has already been a 15% decrease in the number of non-managerial employees in the National Weather Service over the last decade. With this round of firings, all probationary employees were let go. That means folks who are in their first year of employment, or veteran folks who had recently come to the National Weather Service within 2 years of employment, so some senior folks as well. We also know there have been firings at NOAA headquarters, the National Tsunami Warning Center, and research institutions like the Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory. Now, you might remember the fork in the road option. My sources also tell me that several employees who took a deferred resignation option slated for November have also been let go without warning. About an hour before the close of the workday Thursday, affected employees received this email. Then they were fired effective immediately.
One of my final conversations with my manager today was my 1 month check-in, because I just got started, and he told me how well I was doing. We had the SU and the MIC. They both told me how well I was doing. I'm already doing long-term forecasts, AFDs, working the grids, putting out tasks. I got up at 4:15 this morning to go to work, so if I'm a bad employer, then everyone's a bad employer.
They were told they were, quote, not fit for continued employment because their ability, knowledge, and/or skills did not fit the agency's current needs. That's quite contradictory considering many of these employees were hired less than 2 months ago. Now, it's difficult to legally fire an employee for something non-performance-based, but the Office of Personnel Management basically used a loophole. They said that the agency has shifted so much in the past month or two that the forecasters are no longer compatible with the agency's needs.
I think they were kind of just looking at the rule book, seeing how they can get maximum number of employees out of the government. The quickest way to get the highest number of employees, they want to get the biggest bang for their buck.
It's a tactic that may not hold up in court. Judge William Alsup of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California granted a temporary restraining order against the Office of Personnel Management. He says, quote, the Office of Personnel Management does not have any authority whatsoever under any statute in the history of the universe to hire and fire employees at another agency. He cited the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act of 1883, arguing the effective employees can't be fired for political reasons. He also argued that Congress has delegated hiring decisions to the actual agencies, not the Office of Personnel Management. For now, it's unclear what's next in the legal process.
These have been challenged in court. I don't know the specifics of the case, but they have been struck down in certain agencies. They've even been reversed, U.S. Forest Service reversed their decision with meteorologists. I think even the Ebola team, that decision to lay them off was reversed.
Most management was unaware these firings were coming. Late last week, the Department of Commerce was provided with a list of probationary employees who would be affected. So what does this all mean? Well, the staff reductions could limit research progress in improving future forecasts and also impede the issuance of watches and warnings and current forecasts. Here's a tweet from NOAA's Great Lakes Environment Research Laboratory. Already, some weather balloon launches have been suspended, like that out of Kotzebue, Alaska. Less data could mean a degradation of forecast quality, especially in remote areas. And there could be more missed events. In November, the National Weather Service in Norman was late on warning several tornadoes due to staffing shortages. Now, it's true that some positions could be consolidated or supplemented by the use of artificial intelligence. But many of the AI researchers were also cut. Now, some argue this is part of a push to privatize weather, arguing that private companies could fill the gaps. However, every weather app depends on NOAA data. They're responsible for the procurement and assimilation of data that every private company uses. The National Weather Service only costs Americans an average of $4 per year, about the cost of a modern-day cup of coffee. Now, overnight last night, I sat down with a Weather Service employee who was affected by these firings. Of course, we are protecting their identity. Here's what they had to say.
We had, obviously like the fork in the road emails. And then actually our emails were compromised because the folks from Doge accessed our listserv via a private server, right? We still don't know who's running that, what's going on with that. But there was an activist who decided to actually enter the listserv and start spamming our emails with pornographic things, very vulgar things. And, so we had a brief period where the email sort of stopped. Then we had the 5 bullet points email. List 5 things you've done this week. And I actually listed the 5 things I did that one day because I was covering pretty easy to do that. We had mixed guidance about that. The whole time, though, management didn't know what was going on. Eastern region, the headquarters folks didn't understand what was going on. And even up until today, my boss, he found out through me and my fellow probationary employee. So they had no idea.
The Weather Service has also seen their funding for equipment drained.
Our accounting budget for credit cards and company credit cards has been reduced to $1. So we can't gas up our vehicles to fix ASOS sites. Our equipment techs can't buy new equipment.
In our conversation, we discussed a lot more that we'll include in future updates. For now, we are on top of the situation. We are following again for more information. Please stay tuned for more in the days ahead.
Follow MyRadar on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Download MyRadar on iOS, Android, Amazon Alexa, and Windows.